my soul has been healing them ever since they made that contact. And in one case, I had a dream one morning before a meeting with a new client. And in the dream, I had like very specific spots, two of them, like on the face of skin cancer. And then I like removed them or something. And then I go to my office and he sits down and he said, I had skin cancer in two spots right here. And I like healed that before I ever met him in some weird astral plane, situation.
Welcome to the Consciousness of the Way. I'm your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master Sun Qing, and we have an incredible intuitive healer, all things energetic, using many different principles, methods, and understanding all things metaphysical. Welcome, Stephanie Kraft. How are you?
Hi, San. Thank you so much. I'm doing very well. Thank you.
Oh, I'm very excited to have you here today and getting a more of a feel of your entry point, your understanding. How about you share with the audience a little bit more about your backstory leading up to this incredible realization that you and I are having, that everything is as one?
Yeah, I mean, I had an interesting backstory because I was not a believer in anything that you couldn't see or feel or touch. And I had a really massive awakening in the year 2000. But in 1997, I was actually working in health promotion in the corporate world, wellness programs. And I was at an event that I was working at, and I decided to take a break and walk around to see what else was going on at this wellness fair. And there was a woman standing at a table, and there was no tablecloth, nothing, just a table and a chair. And she said, as I passed by her table, she said, "Would you like to experience Reiki?" And I said, "What's that?" And she said, "It's universal life force coming down and flowing through me, and out my hands." And I was like, this lady is speaking a different language. I have no idea what language that is, but I said, okay. So she stood behind me and she put her hands on my shoulders like that. And I sat there in the chair receiving this energy that her hands were hotter than humanly possible. They were very hot. And I was sitting there thinking to myself, okay, when I get up, I'm going to turn around and look for the radiator or the thermos where she was heating up her hands. So I did. After she finished, I stood up and I looked, and there was just the table with, like I said, no tablecloth. Nothing was hiding. There was nothing to see. And I said to her, "I'm looking for the thermos or the radiator where you heated up your hands. How did your hands get so hot?" And she said, "That's Reiki, universal life force flowing through me." And I was like, okay. So in that moment, I decided to take Reiki and put it in my back pocket because I wasn't ready for it yet, but I remembered it. So it wasn't until 2000 when I had my massive spiritual awakening, and I had a session with a psychic, which I did not believe in either yet. And my friend convinced me, "You got to try it out, And I thought she was really kind of dumb for wasting money on something fake. I just thought it was fake. And I had this session, and this psychic said to me, "You are a healer and a teacher." And it resonated with my soul. I had already been looking into going to acupuncture school. I was like on my way to acupuncture school at that time. And so I knew I was like into the healing arts just beginning. And acupuncture is mind, body, spirit. And I had only opened to mind, body. And so it was like a gradual opening that was happening in my life. And so after he said that, "You're a healer and a teacher," I'm cutting it very short because the story could probably take 10 hours to tell. But later, so then in the next year, in 2001, is when I went for my Reiki training. and found out I really was a healer because I could do it. And my teacher was very impressed because I picked up on some things in her body. And I said, "Do you have this? Do you have that?" And she said, "Stephanie, wow, like, yes, you're picking up on actual issues that I have." So it started there, 2001, and then off, and then so my healing journey, I taught Reiki for 14 years, but I didn't do Reiki all of these 20 something years. I actually had a very profound experience in I had been told by different psychics or intuitives that you're going to be bringing in a new healing technology. And in my mind, I was like, I wonder what that's going to be. Am I going to like create a healing modality? But that's not what ended up happening. One night during sleep, I had a profound spiritual experience where I was actually in a different realm, like off of Earth. I was not on Earth anymore. And I was with these beings who were instructing me in how to heal the human body. And they had a silhouette of the human body up, to demo. And they had like points of light, like some of them on the chakras. And they were teaching me. And I was gifted with a profound healing technology, energy healing gift. I already had the gift, but this was new. And so when I woke up, I remembered this, that they instructed me and that I was given this gift of healing. And so I decided to not do Reiki. And I put my hands on my clients. Well, I tested it out for the first time. And I said, I told myself, don't turn Reiki on, don't do Reiki, just put your hands on and see what happens. Don't do anything. And what I felt, the energy coming through me, and it felt like 100 or 1,000 times stronger than Reiki. And so I never did Reiki again. And this was in 2009, but in 2006, I had like what you would call a walk-in experience where more of my higher self embodied within me. And I started to have these every single day for 3 years from 2006, actually way longer than 3 years, but I started noticing it in 2006. And then in 2009, when I woke up with this new healing gift, it was like, I knew that the prior 3 years had been building up to actually begin doing it, because what had been happening. And then this kept happening beyond the 2009. But when I would wake up in the morning, I would have this energy going through my whole body, like doing this pulsing through my whole body. And I'd wake up with it every day, and I would just wait for it to like finish and then I would get up. And then same time frame, all these years, I would be sitting in a chair like this. And anytime I was just sitting still, maybe at my computer, I would feel this energy coming in through my body and spiraling up, like just a lot of spiraling was going on through my body. And so I felt like I was being downloaded for years with this new healing energy. And so it turned out that was true. And so the spiritual experience with the beings teaching me and showing me the human body, teaching me how to heal, was the time where it was like activated, where I knew I could actually use it. And so ever since then, I've been doing that. And the healing I don't understand how it's so amazing and miraculous, because it works, and it works on all levels: mental, spiritual, emotional, physical. And I connect with the client's higher self, channel their higher self, send the healing. It's over the phone mostly. I mean, I've done years of in-person sessions, but nowadays it's more over the phone. And it works just as well. And they can feel the energy no matter where they are in the world. They can feel it. Not everybody, but a lot of people. And so, yeah, that's been my journey in a nutshell with energy healing.
That's just profound. Now, before these beings that look like aliens, from what I can see, there's like 3, something along that number, and they're sort of like long and white looking with big bulbous black eyes. It's kind of
Well,
weird.
they were long. It's hard to remember from something of a spiritual experience while you're sleeping, but they did seem, from my memory, and then I wasn't seeing them totally clearly either, but you described them, what I would
Well,
say.
they're in your field right now. That's why I'm looking at it going, okay.
Yeah, so they
Interesting.
were well,
Very, very
okay.
interesting because, I teach people how to read auras, but I mean, this stuff is still happening. So I'm looking at that going, hmm. And now, interestingly enough, I feel like over the last 30 years, there's been a fire sale on alien interaction. Most recently, I haven't really touched on alien interaction more than I have in the last 2 to 3 months, where I'm seeing dozens of them everywhere. Before that, I hadn't seen that. I deal with spirit entities. I teach, I do exorcism, all that kind of ancient Taoist stuff. Lots of different entities, all different types. There are limited amounts, but aliens specifically. So it's sort of like they're 100% in your field. It's
Oh
so
my
interesting. You have this incredible, like, angelic sort of like baby blue aura that is just sort of you're emitting this golden white light that comes out. It's just constant. But it blows me away. But it's probably more like you're probably like, how the hell does he even see that stuff? It is what it is.
oh, well, it's so amazing and beautiful and accurate because everything you've said, because the beings and then the blue, I've experienced myself as a blue being and blue sphere and light, and then the golden white light, that's the energy, healing energy, I believe, that comes through me.
Oh, it doesn't. You don't have to believe it. It's a knowing because it's happening right now. So I'm for the audience. I'm sitting here, by the fireside of like Stephanie's like transmutation of energy, and it's burning my eyebrows. But hey, look, this is what I love to do. This is what I do all day, every day, and it's a lot. It is a lot. It's yeah. But and I think what most people need to realize is when you are in the presence of these types of frequencies, people need to understand that you're going to have two things that are going to come to your realization, and that's generally the side effect of a duality. Being where humans start, you know what you know, you don't know what you don't know. So with this high level of frequency, you're either going to love Stephanie or you're going to run from her. It's really
Right.
that simple. Have
If
you
you're not
noticed it? Yeah.
Well, yes, if you're not ready for healing or opening or, awakening your consciousness, you're not going to come to me. You're going to stay away. But do you know about David Hawkins' scale of consciousness calibrations?
I've come across it before. Yeah, yeah. But
So
I
a
wouldn't
friend
say I would look at that as a barometer. It's like a potential. But yeah, please tell me more about
Yeah,
what you're.
well, a friend of mine knew a very skilled uh, person who's able to test that. Not everybody can do that testing, but
Oh,
this man could.
I
Yeah.
can test.
Yes, a lot of people can. I think you have to be higher calibration, yourself to be accurate.
Yeah.
So this man would do that, and she brought a list of things to ask him. And the testing, basically, if anybody doesn't know, it's kinesiology, it's muscle testing, and she was lying flat, face down on a table, he was a chiropractor, so chiropractic table, massage table, that kind of thing. And so she's face down, and he tests the legs, like the strength. If he presses on your leg and you can't resist it and you're weakened and the leg goes down, it's a no, because your energy field is weakened with the no. And then if you can hold strong and steady, and even with his pressure trying to pull your leg down and you stay strong, then it's a yes. And so she can't see what he's testing. She's face down. He has a piece of paper with all her questions and he's just testing it silently. And so I didn't know she asked him this question, but she said, what is Stephanie Kraft's healing modality or energy healing calibrated? What is the number? And it tested higher than unconditional love. And I didn't, at the time, I had no idea anything could be higher than unconditional love. I thought that was the top, but it's Reiki is lower, and then there's unconditional love, and then my healing modality. So that was a really interesting way to find out how high it was, which I knew, but I didn't know it was that high. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's these epiphanies where you have these moments where you're operating in this knowing, and then there's another validation that just sort of slips in your everyday operation. It's like that's an example of that. You knew this, you tapped into it, you use it on a daily basis, and then someone else is validating what you already know, which is like, oh, bing.
Right.
Very, very exciting. So tell us more about what are the types of things that you generally notice as an effect of this type of frequency? I imagine you've got like a laundry list of like what people would perceive as miracles just happen, right? They're
You-
just like, oh, hang on a second. How is it that I'm in this frequency and poof, I'm seeing something that's like the next coming of Jesus is materialized right here. It's really exciting.
Yeah. So, basically, like, really, people come to me with everything under the sun, all problems. And whether it's a stomach, digestive issue, or whether it's a relationship issue or trauma, a lot of trauma from childhood, everybody's got it and I clear it. And so, it's like, I mean, an example, the other day I had a woman actually in person at my office, and I did this whole long energy healing session with her, and at one point in it I felt this sudden healing of the entire relationship with her mother, and it like moved through her whole body and like released. It was, you feel things energetically that are sort of weird or hard to explain, but they're happening. And then so I had my eyes closed, and then when it happened and I felt the whole theme of it, I still had my eyes closed, but I imagined that she was like welling up with tears and beginning to cry because of what had just happened. So I opened my eyes and that's exactly what was happening. She was just starting to cry. And I said, I I just felt this massive like healing of your whole relationship with your mother. And she was like, yes, I know. Like she felt it before I said anything. She felt all of it before I mentioned it. So it's like any kind of issue that a person has, I just they can tell me about it, or not, and then I tune in to the root cause of anything. What if any issue, spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, I just go into the root and I ask. I mean, nobody can explain how it happens, right? My intuition works this way. I ask to connect with the higher self. Obviously, I'm connected to my higher self. I ask for the root cause, or I send my consciousness in to check, and then I'm told or seen or I'm shown. It comes in all the varieties of ways, and I bring it up. Did this happen to you? Or do you have this underlying fear of blah, 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 whatever it may be. And then they, of course, say yes. And we clear it. I clear it. So it's hard to explain, but I clear like anything, trauma, fear, relationships, physical pain. A lot of it is that we all humans hold everything we've ever experienced in our body. And so my work is to get it out of the body, even if it was like this little snippet of a thing that happened when you were 5 years old, but it scared you. Well, that shock is still stuck in there. So it's everything from a little something to huge things that have happened to people. So as an empathic healer, I can feel in my body very specifically where they have an issue. And like, even if they haven't told me, I'll say, do you have something here? And they'll tell me, yes. So it's like, it's hard. I mean, it's hard to say what are the most miraculous things, because I think all of it seems miraculous,
All of it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting because all the OGs of the channel, any of my students and people that watch this podcast, part of the foundational stuff of Taoist principles of internal alchemy that I teach people that are thousands of years old. And it starts with the seed of the balance of emotion and virtue within the body that comes from the stagnation of the accumulation of emotional state that generates into a manifestation of physicality. So
100%.
what you're speaking on is so profound for anyone watching this, because they know I've been teaching them this for many, many years. And you sort of start with something. I generally go with starting with just an aura reading. So we read the 5 major organs of the body: heart, liver, lungs, kidneys, spleen. And from that, then that offsprouts into all the energy centers within Taoism. We call them dantians, the first 9. And from that, I can assess instantly a mental, emotional, and physical state of anybody. And people kind of freak out about that because it's very personal and it's instantaneous. I don't care who you are. It's sort of like when you realize this frequency, like this Stephanie's frequency that she tunes into, it's consciousness. So that means that people come to me and they go, "Oh, can you help me? My grandmother's healing. Do you need her name and birthday?" I don't need any of that. It doesn't
I,
matter. I don't even know. I don't need to know whoever the person's name is. It instantly becomes attuned and realized. And
that's
so a
how
lot of
it
people
is
say
for me too. I
that.
never need a name.
Yeah, it's very it's important that people understand this. And when someone stacks that up as a necessity for their own realization for healing, that's just where they're at. Is it wrong? No, it's just what they need to access a frequency to help you help someone else or help themselves or whatever. But generally speaking, when you understand that consciousness is all things, that you are consciousness, this very moment is the only thing you need to be concerned with, because that's where you get the healing. That's
Yeah.
where it's realized instantaneously. It's not happening in the past or the future. It happens now. And that tunement is a pulpability that Stephanie talks about, that I show people. It's like you need to be able to access it at will, or it's nothing but conceptual, or perhaps maybe what some people would consider a psychotic episode. It has to be realized. It's like this is the whole point of your validation. The truth is your truth and the only truth you need to be concerned with, but it only comes from experiential moments of realization. And so when Stephanie can show you that through a physical, mental, emotional, spiritual healing, this is where we're off to the races. This is where all of a sudden things change dramatically. And
Yes. And we didn't even mention past lives because a lot of people have brought in baggage, physical ailments, mental, emotional, from other lifetimes.
oh yeah,
So we
yeah.
clear that too. And I like to go into the womb because I like to go back to the womb, to the beginning, because when a baby is in the womb, they receive energetic imprinting from their mother. And I like to clear that too, because a lot of the time, whatever themes, problems, they're having, it's coming from not even from themselves.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it's beautiful. You mentioned the womb, and within Taoism, we use this sort of scepter within certain rituals that we have. We all have rituals. We all have like processes to cultivate energy, and one of them is because we reference the Tao, which would be parallel to God, universe, however, but the Tao is the mother of all things. And I think a lot of people go, what did you say? What was that? Did you just say the mother of all things?" And I said, "Yeah, I didn't stutter when I said the mother of all things." And so people are like, "What you talk about, Willis? What exactly does that mean?" And I'm like, "Well, let me go a little deeper, because this is sort of the secrecy of many like ancient practices that are not realized. We use this scepter, Ru Yi Ryu, and it's shaped in the form of a uterus. And this is across all fields. Now, when you understand the uterus is the universe, you understand that this is the creation. Our highest number within our numerology, within our ancient sacred geometry, is 9. Now, there are no coincidences that it takes 9 months to create a human life. It's no coincidence that from what people would conceive as the Big Bang Theory, however you want to unravel that, again, it's a theory. You come back to the understanding that within Taoism there was 3 stages of the creation of the cosmos, and we use the 3 pure ones to identify that, and supreme purity, J purity, highest purity, and within that is a cycle of 9, right? So 9 stages that you go through to be present and transmute it what you believe is your reality. So we tap into that divine energy. And so that's the true source of all things. People don't understand that. And the power of the yin energy, which we speak of within Taoism, to truly master a level of frequency of healing, there's a separation of electric and magnetic. And we focus on the magnetic fluidity, which is the 0 point energy, which would be reflected within physics or quantum physics as the super glue that keeps all of this stuff together. And so that is something that we reference within the internal alchemy. So you create this internal alchemy where in the middle dantian, which would be your fourth chakra, your heart chakra, however you want to call it, there's a death of a star, the rising of the red phoenix from the ashes, and the revealing of the black hole energy, which is a 0 point energy. And so the relevance of all this, thousands of years, it's been handed down for generation to generation. And you have your insight where your guides have brought you to this point, and you're realizing your own viewpoint, which I always remind consciousness is just, we all have a seat at the table and we see it, everything in a different angle. That your guides have brought you to this point where you're tapping into this incredibly high potent frequency that is realized as all things, and it transmutes into a mental, physical, spiritual healing. And
Yes.
it comes across all platforms. And so when people hear about this stuff, they go, this is blowing my mind. How is this possible? I mean, I had a student, he's got a PhD, was doing some project or research, and he was just researching the nucleus of a cell. And he comes back to me, Shifu, you're not going to believe this. I'm like, please tell me what. You know what I found in the nucleus of a cell? I'm like, I don't know. I'll take a guess, but why did you tell me? Black hole energy. And I'm like, hey, look, you come to these realizations, just like you had one right now. Poof. It's like this has always been here, and our intuition serves us better than any man-made real. I don't know how this happens. It happens all this weirdness, this firework. So you come to this realization. It's like, I've always known this. And then another validator, another moment. Like today will be one of those, you're not going to believe the podcast I had. And then I had this book, and it aligns with all the stuff that you've already realized, which comes back to how Stephanie was talking about how when she heals someone, they feel it before it happens. This is basically how I teach people. I show you. So there's a magnitude of frequency that takes place when I'm working with one person, 1,000 people within a group healing, and they experience the transformation before maybe I mention an incantation, or I'm calling in a spirit or an energy that is materialized. And they're like, I felt it. Before you even said it, I felt it through my whole body. It's driving. It's crazy. It's mind blowing. This is the power of what we speak of.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's incredible. And I'm just remembering, because this is up your alley. I once did, the first time I ever did the small heavenly circuit. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
I had a massive energetic response where my body was out of control, actually, as the energy was circulating.
Which you would call it a microcosmic orbit.
Microcosmic orbit. Yeah. Yes.
That's really what it, and I'll be honest with you, I haven't seen anyone in the Western world that actually has the keys to that. I teach it, but there are pieces missing. The closest thing that's a transmutation of that is from this guy named Mantak Chia, which is, it's not a complete system, but that microcosmic orbit that you speak of is, equivalent to activating the universe inside you.
Yes, and I sure did. The circulation of the energy through the microcosmic orbit was causing my body to undulate with that, and it was going on for quite a long time. Have you ever heard of this happening before?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, because what happens is you activate it. When I did a far more secretive sort of processes that I teach people, it's called the Wuji infinite body, which makes that look like a walk in the park. But that was part of my priest training 30 years ago. I broke like 3 or 4 chairs. I do it often. People are like, hey, I want whatever he's having. It's a transmutation of that energy, right? And so you realize if I was to even just tune myself to what's passing through me right now, I'm like moving like this, and then I'm moving like this, and then and then it starts to, and the more I focus on it, the more I'm sort of like, and this is just going on all day long, just as Stephanie is speaking on this, and that's a kicker. But a lot of people tend to talk about it, and they don't have the secret source in that. So the fact that you got from what I can see, there was like 2 or 3 components missing from that, and you still blasted off to the moon.
Yes, it still worked for me. Yes,
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
It was a
Well,
massive experience that lasted, at least a half an hour or 45 minutes, and I could barely walk, after that. It was a big deal.
yeah, yeah. I mean, this is like, and now, off camera, I'll share with you a few missing components to that. If you want to see, Lucy in the sky with diamonds, we'll have that realized. Because it's like there's other stuff. It's like when I get people to understand that their DMT experience doesn't have to be external, that it doesn't have to come in some external force, and people are like, well, I needed that type of, absolutely. I don't ever dismiss anyone else's belief system, or you dismiss your own. But when someone goes, I had this profound experience, ayahuasca, DMT, whatever it is that they used externally, the DMT one I've referenced to, because that's a more common one, where it's a 20-minute Wonderfest and then it's over. And then they get a taste. It's kind of like, going to your local crack dealer. Unfortunately, I'm out of rocks for the next month. What are you talking about? I got an opening. I got what we call a glimpse. I got a glimpse. I want more. I want to live this. I want to embody this. I'm sorry. We're out. We're out right now, bruh. We'll have to come back to you in a couple of months, and we don't have any more. And you're like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? And this is what happens. Whereas I teach people how to have a DMT experience for days. And like,
Wow.
I'm living it right now. Everything is a vivid color. I can see it all with my eyes open. I see spirits, entities, all real time going on right now. And I'm not ready to be committed to the local fun factory. And so this level of sensory perception is a clear sense. And you develop this clear sense. So it's just a matter of having access to it. And that's what I teach people, how to access. That's why you balance it out. There's like not too, you want to make sure it's not too much of one and not enough of the other. So the sensory perception always starts at 5, but then I go, that's 5. And then all bets are off. I go under the blank. People go, well, you're a Taoist priest, but you teach people psychic, mediumship, healing, channeling. Yeah, all of the above. Sure, absolutely. But once to me, in definition, all it is a sensory perception. And so once you dial it in, it's open to you. You're in the Wizard of Oz, and you're experiencing it right now. Like, the epic transformation of your aura as I'm sitting here looking at you, and the expansion of, first and foremost, just for the audience, and they already know this, I always sit in the universe. So I'm experiencing all the senses of the universe. This is not a backdrop for me. The backdrop is the universe itself. So I'm sitting in it, sampling all those. So what people would refine that as is astral projection, out of body. I'm already out of body. I'm in a whole heap of different dimensions while I'm having a conversation with you. And that kind of sounds rude, doesn't it? It's like, hang on, you're not really present. Well, I am. I'm just operating in that sensory perception, and I'm able to, it's tangible. I feel it through my whole body. I'm moving through the sun. I'm going to constellations. I'm experiencing it. And it's a profound effect of all things happening at once. And this is part of what people look for. They go looking for this type of access point. And I want people to understand that you can access it through the right methods. That's all it is. It's like, please understand this. There is no way that anyone on the face of the earth right now can't access all the things that Stephanie and I access. It's a matter of having a way to get there and understanding how you develop those skills. And if you can't understand how you develop it, of course, it becomes conceptual. And so most people are like, I wish I could get there. I hear people all the time going, if it's the last thing I do in this lifetime, I'm going to have an out-of-body experience. Well, I can show you that right now. Let's do this. Let's make this happen. And so, watching your aura, watching all everything, focusing on anything, and the information just comes up. You're able to access it. This is what we'd call, covert black ops psychic readings. I like doing that down. I'm in Nevada, so I'm down on the strip, so I'll go down there and do that all the time. Either, do readings on the fly for, just to shift the consciousness. People are like unassuming. And the first thing that I always go, do you want me to do this? And they're like, sure, go ahead. Yeah. Oh, yeah, Mr. Magic Man. Tell me a little bit about myself. And then I'm 2 seconds in, and they're like, please stop. I don't want anyone to know my sexual deficiencies and everything, because I'm just reading the energy. I'm not attached to it. Part of this access point is realizing when you're not attached to anything and you're not bringing this need for your personality to be present, all of a sudden the information goes, whoop, it's just sitting there in front of you. And so there's always that reluctance. So I imagine wholeheartedly, if someone's in front of Stephanie, it's because their intuition has brought them to that point, because, you know, you have this awakening of, holy crap, maybe I wasn't ready for this. And, you know, I know that Stephanie has the sensory perception to validate that and go, well, maybe you shouldn't be doing this right now. This is not, you're not at the right frequency. And like your guides would tell you that. They'd be like, all right, okay, maybe they should just sort of have this experience as opposed to something a little bit more eye-opening that could possibly be the car wash or the super steroid version of Dark Night of the Soul. And then where, you know, it just doesn't end. It's like, oh my goodness, this is a roller coaster ride. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I really feel that people's higher selves guide them to me. And, you know, because the healing goes to through the soul, like, and then to the person, I think that they get what they need when they need it. And so, yeah, it's like titrated to their level.
Yeah, you just you tune in. Like, I've never ever come across anything more powerful than energy, because everything is energy, frequency, vibration. And, you know, I wouldn't say, maybe it was my realization of who I am in this lifetime, incarnation, reincarnation, however you want to define it, and the past lives that have brought me to this point. But my frequency is at attunement level that hasn't realized. And so, you know, the first thing that happened to me decades ago when I first started on this journey was distant healing. Like, and back in those days, we had rotary phones, you know, the rotary. And the first thing that happened, I just got out of like a training all day, and it was like listing all these things. You do this, this is this. It's like, and I was looking at it like a menu. What am I doing? The disbelief part was not there. The old expression, suspend disbelief. I just looked at it. It was like, hey, look, the menu says this, you do this, and then whatever. And I really believe that that childlike state for anybody is an entry point to realization. Like, if you accept things at face value, crazy things take place, in my opinion. Right. And so, you know, that was like the first thing that happened to me. It's like, okay, I get a phone call. My friend's like, oh, look, I want to meet you, but, you know, I sprained my ankle. It's the size of a watermelon. I'm like, sure, you know, I want to meet you, but you don't want to meet me, you know, boy, girl things. I'm like, sure, you're telling me that story. She's like, seriously, my ankle is the size of a watermelon. I'm here at my mother's house. I just can't go anywhere. I'm like, okay, all right, next week. It's so cool. Getting off the phone, I'm like, whoa. And she's like, what? Like, I'm in pain right now. What? I'm like, let me try something. She's like, try what? I just got out of this training today. I've got a list of things here. Let's see whether this stuff really does work. Because in my mind, I'm like, no. You know, it doesn't. It's face value. It says yes, but I'm thinking, what have I got to lose? What's the big deal? So I go through the list, and then the last incantation was heal, 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 heal. And the same, after I finished the last heal, the words out of her mouth were, what the, and like screaming. And I'm like, what's going on? She's like, my ankle shrunk before my very eyes. I'm standing on it right now with no pain. And I'm like, you're full of shit. I was just like, come on, really? She's like, I'm not kidding you. And I'm like, in those days, you take a Polaroid. You don't have a cell phone. You go, take a Polaroid, right? And so she took a Polaroid. And when I got to her place, I was like, this is unbelievable. And her mother was sitting there. It's like something out of like you'd say it's out of a Hollywood movie. They had this house up on the hill. It was all made of glass. The mother was just like this. I never really took much notice of her because she was sort of like this chain smoking alcoholic, in my opinion. So she was in the background, but she'd, you know, they were of means. They had money. And so I'm like, okay, look, that's nice. And so when I get there, it's sort of like she's sitting on the couch. I walk through the door and she gets up and she walks to me. And I'm like, what? And she goes, look at this. And the mother's like, and I'm like, okay. And she goes, I always knew you were a healer. You can't make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up. And it's like crazy stuff, Stephanie. This is like the stuff that, you get you on the path. And like, and ever since that moment, everything is instant. And you witness it. I watch flesh wiggle before my very eyes. It transmutes, it changes. I mean, I've got hundreds of stories like that.
Oh,
but
I
like
know.
more dramatic, like cancerous tumors, all this kind of stuff. It's just like you can't make this up. And I mean, I love looking at you because you know what I'm talking about. The excitement that you get of what I'm speaking of is like the seed of like, this is the seed of your realization, and you just run for it. It's like, and it'll never leave you in this lifetime once you get something like that.
Right. I mean, it happens. The interesting thing that happens in my case is that people will book a session with me, and my soul, I don't know this. They tell me this. I go and heal them. They book a session and then they say, oh, well, you came to me in my dream and healed me. And many people say, you came to me in my dream and healed me before they came in for the session. Or they felt better. They got better after they booked the session. And I know it's the same thing. My soul has been healing them ever since they made that contact. And in one case, I had a dream one morning before meeting with a new client. And in the dream, I had like very specific spots, 2 of them, like on the face of skin cancer. And then I like removed them or something. And then I go to my office and he sits down and he said, I had skin cancer in 2 spots right here. And I like healed that before I ever met him in some weird astral plane, situation. So the thing is that the healing is taking place on other levels that we're not aware of. And then when we're actually doing it in the 3D, it's like just kind of playing it out in linear time when it's all really probably happened, but in a way. But yes, people, even cancer people, have told me, I mean, I don't really want to say this like publicly, but they have said that after a session with me, it was gone. So that has happened,
Oh, 100%. That same mother dipped me in the crash course. Not a week later, they're like, oh, well, you're a healer now. And I'm like, okay. And so I end up on her doorstep and they're like, yeah, mom's got a problem with her foot. Why don't you check it out? She doesn't believe it. I don't believe it, doctors. I don't believe in anything. She's just like, and in between that and a bottle of vodka or whatever, hey, look, she's living her life. However, so she couldn't see her feet. She sits in like one of those rocking chair types of things, and she had her foot out on a stool, but she couldn't see over her stomach. She couldn't see her foot. And so I'm like, look, this is new to me. This is kind of crazy because now I'm like I got direct communication with my teacher, Latsu, who's with me 24/7 all the time for over 30 years now. And so I channel him directly. I get information directly. I see him. He's sitting in the room right now looking at me. It's right here. And so this is what's going on. It's the magic of it. So I turn up to this woman and I've got him in the background and they're like, oh yeah. I'm like, let's check this out. So I pull her sock off and her foot is gangrenous black, right? And in my mind, she can't see it. She goes, so what's going on down there? And I'm like, okay. Because she just doesn't want to know. She's don't know. If I don't know, I won't. And in lots of ways, that's true. It's like how you put your mind into it is going to affect the outcome. It's like, she's been at it for so long, like just the abuse. I mean, I think she was like 70 or 80 at the time. So she had a clip on her. She was pretty like surprised. For many people to be like, how'd you last this long, to be honest with you? And so I'm looking at it, and in my mind, I went, we need to get this person to a hospital right now.
Oh my God.
Like in my mind, I'm like, this is crazy. This is absolutely. And so Latsu's like, no. I'm like, what do you mean no? And she's like, how's it going down there? I'm like, I'm just taking a look. It's all good, you know. Well, let me just assess what's going on here. And I'm like, we need to just take this person to a hospital. And he's like, no, we're going to heal her. I'm like, sure. He goes, sit back and watch this. And in 40 minutes, it went from gangrenous black to pink flesh and blood, right back to 40 minutes. And I'm sitting there, and you talk about the heat, right? When I channel, the heat is so much, I'm like in a sauna. And so that energy comes through you, and it's like, it is so strong. And that charge you and I just got right now, and that realization is like, holy moly. And so I watched this whole thing transform. And I'm like, if I hadn't have seen that, I wouldn't have believed it. It was 40 minutes. Now, ever since then, the healing's become even stronger, and they're more efficient. But my past hobby would be like bursting like people's cysts that they have in their neck, and then just race to the top of the skin, and they just blow out. Like I had this one woman with a breast, she had the size of a baseball on her breast, and it was just huge. And I watched this with my own eyes. It came to the surface, the skin opened up, a liter of pus poured out, and then it sealed back up in front of my very eyes. And I'm like, yeah, that's crazy, man.
Oh, goodness.
Oh my goodness. And
I love it.
this is a type of stuff that it's just another validation. It's all frequency. It's
Yes.
all frequency. So, this type of stuff is, so when you share anything with me, I know it's possible. There's nothing that's impossible. Not a single thing. But no, sorry. It's like, I've seen it. It's like it will happen. If I haven't seen it, I'll witness it at some point in my natural born life. But I've seen it all, from that type of transformation, cancer disappearing, broken ankles, all that kind of stuff. You watch it, and you're like, this is crazy. This is crazy. But right now, it's like a fire sale. People are more open to this stuff now than I've ever seen before in my natural born life. Ever. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. It's really wonderful and amazing that people are opening up, and that these types of conversations are becoming more common, and people are believing in the power of energy from any standpoint, from sound healing, energy healing, even just, yeah, like the consciousness of humanity is opening up finally.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. It's like, how would I explain it other than, you attune. So for me, the first time I channeled Latsu was like a thunderbolt of energy, right? Something similar to what Stephanie would describe as her oscillating and vibrating after her microcosmic orbit. Only he dropped into the center of my body like a seed of bright white light, and emanated through my whole body. And everyone in the room, there was about 20 people in the room, they were like literally standing by a bonfire burning off. And so as he transmitted through me, every single word came out, was rippling out into a healing effect for everyone in the room.
Wow.
And then that was like, hello, I'm home. Welcome to your realization. How's it feel being at one with all things right now? And I was like, oh my goodness. Now that teacher at the time, he's since passed away, was so pissed off because he spent 50 years looking for this type of
Right.
phrase. And this happens a lot with people because they go chasing it. What's the other expression? I'm chasing the dragon, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they go chasing it, and they'll literally do anything. Like I had once that happened, then I had this, what would be equivalent to Dark Nights of the Soul on steroids, times it by 100 million, and you might experience what I'm talking about. And so normally Latsu reminds me that, one lifetime you can have up to 9 of those experiences. I had one that literally compressed all past lives and everything into one moment. It was a 5-day roller coaster where I had every thought, every feeling, every emotion happen at once, nonstop. and I was like beside myself. I couldn't contact my teacher; they weren't available. And like once it was over, which would lead you all different paths of like uh, taking my life because I needed to be over. All this, everything happening at once. Like it's like a magnify all things imagined. I wanted to stop. I wanted to stop. And when it finally stopped, it was like being in the middle of a tornado. And then I finally got hold of my teacher and I tell them, and they're like, "Oh my goodness, I'm so excited for you. This is so amazing." I'm like, "You've got to be out of your mind." And they're like, "This is part of shifting your conscious. This is part of your leveling up." And I'm like, I don't prescribe, I wouldn't want this for anybody ever, ever. And some people have breakings where they get
Mhm.
immersed in an emotion, but that's not what Stephanie and I are talking about. There's an unraveling that goes on that is second to none. And it's like if you don't have any sort of guidance or understanding, you're gonna probably go close to a couple of clicks from like insane because you can't.
Mhm.
Does that make sense? Have it?
Yeah, I understand. I've been yes, I didn't have that obviously exact experience, but I did have dark nights of the soul. But something that you've said is true that, I wasn't chasing anything. I actually had an experience of Jesus embodying in my body for 2 weeks. And I didn't believe in Jesus actually for a long time. And I still was probably at this point just beginning to contemplate that he might have actually been someone that was real, but I wasn't there yet. And or maybe yeah, I was just entertaining that thought. And then, and I had never been religious, never read the Bible. And he embodied within me and he was speaking his words nonstop the whole time while he was and so I felt the radiance and I could see it. I would look into my eyes in the mirror and I would see his radiance and I felt like other people couldn't see it and I didn't tell anybody what was going on. I was just experiencing it the whole time. And I felt like after that, I felt like, well, maybe he was attuning me to to that consciousness, to that vibration so that I could, well, do what he did, because it was then later that all the downloads of the new energy healing frequencies were flowing through me like for you, like I explained earlier, but this happened before all of that. So it's similar to, it's not what you're talking about because I didn't experience the dark night of the soul with that. I just experienced that love, that radiance, that energy, that vibration. And you can't even explain it. I mean, I just tried to, but to actually feel it and see it and experience it was really something else. And I didn't ever mention that for, I mean, so many years, until like this year, I started openly talking about it.
Well, yeah. I mean, the connection. I mean, he looks more like a traditional version, what someone would consider a traditional version of Jesus. He's very, very angelic like, but has the formation of what some people would be more considered commercially as Jesus. And it comes in all different forms. I've worked with JC and the Big G thousands of times when it comes to healing, because they come in, and if that's part of someone's field or belief system, they're going to be very strong, very,
Exactly.
very strong. And yeah, you get to that moment of realization, and so when you have that, it's like when I first was able to read auras, it was another mind blower, because it all just came in. So the psychic abilities instantly turned on. So it was like I woke up and it was a computer screen of icons instantly, and it was overwhelming. It was overwhelming because everything, I could look at it, the energy, the frequency, the vibration, all the information come through, all the colors. And now I've, over many decades, it took me about 12 months when I first started to calibrate it to my own needs, so that I can still, well, there we go again. I can still, I just tune it to whatever information I want instead of it all being at once. So when that turned on, everything had palpability. So my aura was like a big, like ball of like energy. So I was in, imagine me being in a fat suit, right? And so it had its boundaries. So I would walk down the street and bounce into other people's auras. And so
Wow.
that intangibility of that energy, and that was just having it. So you had to dial it down, but like that's just how it is. And
Yeah.
when you get to that realization, and I was in this class, and I realized that one of the people, that she was a psychologist too, and I instantly turned on and I started reading her energy, and I'm like, oh my goodness, you have a lot of different things that you need to work out. Like you've got, and it was just Tourette's. It was like, you don't want to say it, but it was just me getting used to it. And she was she's like, this guy should not have these powers. He's violating my space. He's violating. I mean, she went off, because I was like, you're a psychologist. You're helping people, but you need more help than your people. And I just looked at her, I was like, you need more help than you need more help than whatever you're giving anyone that's coming to you. And she just like lost it. And she's like, how come this guy has this sort of insight, intuition, the ability? This is ridiculous. He should not have this. And I'm like, listen, I'm sorry. I'll be quiet. I won't. And it's like, you understand, it's like this whole new reality of how you see things, and being able to get that insight. And, it's like, it's just part of the flow of where we're at. And that, that Jesus energy that tapped into you, it's just incredible, insight that comes with that transmutation. It's like, oh, wow. And, me sampling it right now, I'm liking it. I'm liking it a lot, because it's so oscillating and so dense. This is a thing that I like people to understand, is when you ascend, the misconception, and quite frankly, in my experience, is that energies become more palpable. They don't just dissipate, which people tend to go, oh, I'm high. I'm with the ancestors, the celestial realm, and it's all just sort of like so ethereal. I can't, it's all just, it's air. No, it becomes stronger.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, yeah, for sure. The energy, you embody it and feel it, and it moves you. I actually, in my healing sessions in person, like I'll slide my hand under the back, for example, and I don't move. I mean, I can't move my hands. They're under a body that's lying there. I just slide them under like the small of the back, for example, and hold them still. And the energy that comes through causes their body to like be rocking. It's rock, and you can see it. It's actually physically rocking. And the energy is coming through and doing that. And it happens basically in every session in person. And I have to warn people, because they'll say, is the table moving? They feel like the table is swaying like this. And I'm saying, nope, the table is stable. It doesn't move. But it's the energy, and my hands aren't moving. The energy that's coming through me is rocking your body. And the other thing that happens, so yes, you're feeling it in your body. You're not like out there in nothingness, right? And then the other thing that's weird, and you saw the beings, so maybe it's them, but if my hands, let's say, for example, they're on the ankles, then I'll just after a while release and quietly like walk over to maybe the shoulders or somewhere, and I'll place my hands, but they're like, how is she touching me here? Because she's still holding my ankles. And so I don't quite understand that, but I don't know if it's I'm bilocating, or it's my being helpers that are in the healing session helping, and they're
Yeah,
placeholders.
they're absolutely helping. So you create the imprint, and they
Yes,
just continue. It's like you're
exactly.
operating in all dimensions at once.
That's
So you
exactly.
can literally have 1,000 hands on someone instantaneously.
Exactly. And they physically feel the hands on them, even though I go somewhere else. So, yeah, it's more of what you're talking about. It's the being in the body and bringing the energy through and having it here. And it's not about being anywhere else, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is when people they start with NDEs, they go to OBEs, they start looking at sleep paralysis. These are all things that, from conceptually, people would talk about it being out. Now you go inside. So when you go inside, you start to realize, holy moly, this is a tuning fork. As much as I'm out in another dimension, I'm doing all these things, I don't feel my body anymore. You're still accumulating experiences that are kinesthetic in their nature, that you use this tuning fork as a validation for that. This is still a tuning fork. All of this flesh and blood transmutes into whatever you're experiencing, like I'm experiencing right now, experiencing the sun. I'm feeling it through my whole body. I'm getting completely euphoric, as if I'm just sitting out there just pumping out nitric oxide and oxytocin, just getting high as a kite, quite frankly. And this is happening to me right now as we're speaking. So it's like this ability of this physical body is endless. People tend to go, "Oh, I want to disconnect. My reincarnations, I don't want to keep reincarnating. I want to get this over and done with, and I want to be off and free of this pain and suffering of the physical body." And it does not have to be that way. I mean, it's just like Taoism. I remind people with Taoism and Buddhism, people tend to put them in the same category, and they're like, "Oh, they're an Eastern philosophy." True. They also stem off into some type of religious belief system. True. Then what does it really mean? Buddhism, in definition, is a pile of dirt covered in diamonds. And they go through their life taking another diamond off, toss it away. I want more dirt. I want to see the pain and suffering. I want to unravel this until there's nothing left, and then I want to move on. And so their connection with the physicality is not really that important to them. They realize that, hey, I'm internal. I'm eternal. I never die. So, this is just another, I just lost another life on, Mario Brothers, level up, whatever. As opposed to a Taoist will look at life as a pile of diamonds covered in dirt, and uncover the dirt to realize another diamond. And they nurture the physicality and create longevity practices, internal alchemy practices, so that you can keep this flesh and blood for as long as humanly possible, or not. And so, the idea of living 100, 150 years, 200 years, 250 years that have been logged in Taoist canons, and the inner workings of the history of Taoism, that is very palpable. That's very tangible. That's very real. So, people limit themselves, and you want to enjoy and immerse this. It's like, once Stephanie and I share with you the realization consciousness is all things, and you can access this stuff at will. Hell no.
Yes.
What do you do? You want to have a lot of fun doing this. You want to experience what it's like to be at a high consciousness in this human experience, and realize that you can manifest anything, heal anything, create anything. It's all happening now. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh my gosh, I totally agree with all of that. Absolutely. We're learning while we're incarnated in a body. We're learning about energy, about manifestation, about transmutation, about alchemy, about all that we can do while in a body, which is things that we can do when we're not in a body, but now we get to practice it and experience it while in a body, which are things that most people don't know we can do. To the point where, I'm having this question that I want to ask you, because I don't know if you've ever heard about this, but I don't know a lot about it, but something happened to me that then I heard happens to monks and other guru. I don't even know what to call them, yogis. I don't know the name titles that this phenomena would happen to, but have you ever heard of people who they go so deep into like a meditative state, samadhi or whatever, where they stop breathing?
Oh, yeah.
Have you heard about that?
I can do that.
Because that was happening to me.
It's a state of consciousness, and like most of the practice, all the internal alchemy Qigong practices, I teach people how to breathe from consciousness. So the physicality is no longer. So physicality on a face value, you would assume the body is dead, and this is understanding how you breathe from the consciousness itself.
Well, so this is what would happen to me. So in a flotation tank. So I would go, in case people don't know, it's a sensory deprivation tank. I'm sure people know about it nowadays, floating, right? So I would go into this flotation tank and immediately go deep, because that's just what happens to me when I lie down on the water in that darkness. And I would go so deep that I would become aware later on that I haven't been breathing. And I don't know enough about this topic, so or anything. And so my mind would become aware, like, I'm not breathing. Don't you think you should breathe to stay alive? Like, don't you want to stay alive? Because in order to stay alive, you have to breathe. But I wouldn't be breathing, but I would have to very forcibly use my consciousness to force myself to breathe. And it wasn't normal, effortless breathing that we normally do, because we normally aren't thinking about it and we breathe automatically. But this was not happening automatically. Even when I became aware of it and tried to breathe, every breath I took was a forced conscious breath to try to breathe, and that would go on for a very long time until the breathing regulated again. But my body actually wanted to stay in the non-breathing state. And this is something I'm bringing it up because I want to ask you about it, because what I've wondered, what if I let myself continue not breathing, then what would happen? And a friend told me this is where you're on the verge of enlightenment. And if you really let it go, you become enlightened. And I stopped it because I didn't know. But what would you say about that
Well,
experience?
yeah, I mean, you're sort of in between two worlds there. There's that your current incarnation is attempting to exit this simulation. And so now you need to look at, okay, well, we need to master these skills because there are no coincidences. If we're having this conversation right now, we need to refine them. Are they? Do you need to master? Yeah, you do. You need to master these skills, and you need to have a clear pathway to this mastery because there is a potential Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds on a different, like you're re-upping to another video game.
Right, exactly.
So there's this understanding, but your guides are bringing you to this point that we're having this conversation so that you can work out the mastery. And I have no problems teaching you that because you should be able to. It's all like consciousness. You have to shift into these states, and to stop your heart, to stop your breathing. This is I mean I teach people how to do this, where you literally on paper you can't find a pulse. You're not breathing. Your heart's not beating. And this is all a state, but you're breathing from consciousness. So when I always tell people, it's if you come from physicality, biology, psychology, numerology, neurology, any form of construct of how you perceive reality is limited because all you need is the seed of an imagination and anything can be realized. So now there's a fundamental groove and a path that's necessary so that you're not just putting one foot over the line and continually moving forward in another direction, because right now there's a clear evidence from what your guides are telling me is that you need to master this state so that because you've got many more decades within this physical 3D reality to share these skills. But if you don't refine them, there's a potentiality of other things.
Right.
If you understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
I don't set things in stone. I did it once when I first started 30 years ago. And I was like so excited. I got the information. Like, oh, and I told this person, oh yeah, I was told you're going to die in 3 months, 2 days, and 6 hours. And it happened once. And they died in 3 months, 6 days, and two. Just, yeah. And I talked to my guides and I was like, Latsu specifically, why did you make me go through that? It's like, you understand how powerful the now is. You understand how powerful consciousness is. You understand that you access information. I said, well, can we change it? Yes. Because really, it's the now. So what happened was they sat into what they was their life path for this journey, and they just let it roll out. Can I alter that? Absolutely. That's why I don't talk on certain things because they can ripple out into other realizations instantaneously. That's how Stephanie and I evoke this instant healing, is that they've come into our path and they're realizing something that without our presence, that would roll out to be some physical mortality, right? A reflection of something that cannot be altered, but it can. And we all
Right.
know that. There now is the most potent access. So yeah, you're in a place where now we need to refine your mastery of that, and that comes with certain respiratory practices and other energetic components. But if you're interested in that, I'll be more than happy to show you the techniques, because the breathing aspect is critical. We use that quite often. And we have thousands of breathing techniques, but when someone goes, I'm doing breath work, I'm like, really? I didn't know breathing was work, but whatever you say, because there's that rippling effect of that word in of itself that creates a limitation just by putting work and breathing in the same sentence, and you are rippling that out into your realization of your reality. So we do respirating practices, i.e. primordial breathing, embryonic breathing, which you may or may not have heard of, but the embryonic breathing is very much an understanding of the fundamentals of breathing from consciousness, because we were conceived and created in that very state. You're breathing, right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. It's like, oh yeah. So good to know. There are no coincidences. Your guides clearly brought you to us today for that very reason.
Right. This breathing thing happened years ago, when I used to float regularly, but I've been remembering it lately because I wonder, like, what would have happened if I let myself continue on? Because I think it's a spiritual experience that would happen. That would be profound.
What would happen is you would think something and it will materialize. That's what will happen. So you're at the precipice of that. There's a progression of how you engage with your clients, engage with your reality, and it sort of musters up this frequency. But like your next level of consciousness click up is thinking it becomes reality. Healing is instant. Manifestation is instant.
Right.
Magic is instant.
Yeah.
Like, oh, hang on, boom. Like you're doing it unconscious. We're talking conscious. So,
right.
I engage with someone and they tell me, oh my goodness, I got a healing. No, you just like go, okay, I am the universe. Bang, bang, bang.
Right.
Watch it just roll on out. So that's the next level of consciousness that you're on the precipice of. And there are no coincidences. You didn't just think this again. Oh, I just kind of came up. I had this moment years ago. Oh no, they're priming you for your new realization.
Yes.
They're like, it's time. What do you mean it's time? It's time. Well, what exactly does that mean? Well, buckle up, buttercup, because it's time. Be careful, because we've spoken on quite a few subjects that you're about to experience, even right down to a not a vanilla version of a dark night of the soul that needs to be realized. There are no coincidences. It's like, what does that mean? Put your helmet on and get ready. The weather's going to change. And that's part of like the level up. That's part of the level up. It doesn't have to be. I tend to microdose people, because that stuff is like, because I was like, when I had that moment, all things realized, I was vomiting every couple of minutes. And I attempted to distract myself. So I went to the movies, and like there was a sex scene in the movie. This woman was naked. I threw up in front of the person sitting in front of me, all over the place. It was just like this purging nonstop. I was like, I've never had a problem looking at a naked woman before, but like it made me convulse. My whole body was, they thought I was having like an epileptic fit. And this went on for 5 days.
Oh my God.
So it's like, oh no. And this guy's like, really sitting in front of me. And so these types of things are like, you shift your consciousness, but again, it's not limited to anything. It's not bound by anything. It's bound by your experience. Your truth is the only truth you need to be concerned with.
Right.
And so that can happen in every way, shape, or form that can be realized.
Mm-hmm.
So, always. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it's a beautiful thing, because we're constantly going through transformations and up leveling throughout our life, new levels of consciousness, new levels of enlightenment, transformative experiences. And that's what makes this lifetime so much fun.
Yay! Yay! I think, yeah, no, it is. It just sort of like so refreshing talking to you and you having this insight and listening to your journey and where you're at right now and where you've come to. Um, I want to ask you something before we finish here today. What is your thoughts? Or actually, what is your definition of consciousness?
Consciousness is uh, all that exists. So consciousness is in everything. Part of is everything, but consciousness itself, I guess, would be the awareness. It's awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for the audience, what's going on with Stephanie today? What are you doing? What I'm going to put all your social under this podcast, but I want, and this will also be available on all platforms, not just YouTube. YouTube is sort of like a growing infancy, but we're on every single platform across all podcasts, so you can find us anywhere. I think there's like 15 different platforms, but what are you offering today? Where are you at, Stephanie, right now?
Right. So the work that I do with clients, I do energy healing and I do hypnotherapy. And that hypnotherapy is for all issues, just like energy healing is. And I also do within hypnotherapy, past life regressions and life between lives hypnotherapy. So those are the main modalities. I also have a line of products that I make, natural body care, and that's Radiant Sun Botanicals. And I also sell healing device that uses terahertz frequency. It's called iTerracare, and that's on my website. And it's interesting because you said that you've watched things like the body heal itself right in front of your eyes. I've actually witnessed that myself using this healing device, and it's such a miraculous technology that I feel like every home should have one. Everybody should have one. So I like to mention that. But yeah, that's everything I do. My website is stephaniekraft.com. I have a YouTube channel, Stephanie Kraft. I have, I don't know, over 100 videos on there.
Oh wow, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
This is been so. I'm so grateful to the Tao. I'm grateful to you and finding a new friend and bonding and creating this new relationship, because there are no coincidences, and we've had many relationships defined as good or bad in past lives. Looking at it right now, a little bit of polarity, but that's okay because we're coming together today. Wow, we go down that path in past lives. When I do past life readings, I normally give people like the last night. It always gives you enough. So I'll have someone just sort of sit up, lay down, whatever you want, turn your senses on or off. Normally people close their eyes, and when I start the transmission, they see the movie in their third eye. So
Wow.
as it's coming out, they're like, oh, it's like they're sitting there watching their movie. It's crazy, man. It's wild. But this is what we do. This is part of, the magic of what it is that we access. And you are just so refreshing, my friend. I'm really grateful for you.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you.
And we will. I'm putting together an expo, a consciousness expo here in Vegas in September. I'm definitely going to give you an invitation to that and see where you're at in your own timeline. I think it's going to be on the 27th, just finalizing the actual event space, but it'll be on the 27th of September. So we'll have to see where you're at. I'd like to formally invite you, but it's about gathering, because what I've found in this space is there's a lot of people that are, and I'm just going to say it, my personality, exploiting the stories, the insight, the abilities that you and I have for their own gain. And that's okay. But it's like, dude, you're sitting here getting thousands of clicks, building up your YouTube channel, and you're basically accumulating interviews on stuff you have no idea what you're talking about. And I don't know whether you've been on other podcasts, but this is kind of like the oversight that I'm witnessing. It's like not the doers like you and I that are tuning into the frequency and showing people healings. It's someone that's sort of taking advantage of the profound frequency that we are able to be the catalyst and conduit to, and let me reap the benefits of the very story that you give me. And we need to get out there. They're vehicles of how that people become aware of what it is that we transmit, and I can value that. But there's also a level where I want to bring together all these people that want to level up and heal up, and put them in a place where you can come across an incredible being like yourself and have direct access to whatever it is that you're sharing from your attunement of consciousness. And it doesn't tend to translate that way. I notice that people get interviews and then you can't even find out where they're from or what they're doing or within the description. This is like a common thing that takes place. You get on a podcast, and I fell for it once, where I went on a podcast and it was about an hour and a half, and they trimmed it down to 18 minutes. And I was like, I got to experience what it was like, a dark night of the soul on the internet. I had like 60 people heap on going, this guy's a hack. This guy doesn't do this. He said he was going to say something, and he never finished the sentence. He started something because this person took an hour and a half podcast and chopped it down to 18 minutes because they looked at their formula. They said, it says here on the formula, if you're 18 minutes long and you use the color blue and you do all this, I'm going to get views. And so I've since then realized that, I'm going to be a little bit more mindful. And I thought it was hilarious, but like people they're like pack animals. And so they can't, and like, if I didn't know who I was, I could potentially feel very sad and empty inside and possibly feel really bad about myself, but that'll never happen. But, they just pile on, and they just one after the other. This guy never said anything. That was the worst 18 minutes of my life, a complete waste of time. Bang, 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 bang. And it was like one after the other. And it was because it was taken out of context, and none of the information was finished. Like when I have podcasts, whether it's an hour and 20 minutes like this one, or I've had up to 3 hours, I publish it all. I publish it all because it's for the audience to see and get insight into incredible gems that you and I are just sharing through our own consciousness, and that levels them up. And I have people all the time going, I went and I saw this. I saw the podcast between you and Stephanie, and oh my goodness, I can't believe I just feel different. And when she said that about the healing, it just rose me up to another level. And I felt all this energy coming through me. I love that.
That's right. Just authentic conversations, sharing, no agenda, right? Just sharing. And because you and I both know that in sharing this, it does what you just said. It literally expands people's consciousness. Even maybe they get a healing, we don't know.
Well, it's like the present moment, the present. Your gift is your offering. It's a gift. It's a present. Yeah, it is. And so that's really the cycle of all that stuff. It just comes up as that. It's really cool. Mm-hmm. Well, I want to thank you, my friend. I'm really grateful that you spent your time sharing with the audience and myself today. I want to thank the audience. Is there anything you want to share in closing before we close this out?
No, it's just been wonderful talking with you. Thank you so much.
I love it. I just love being able to do this on a daily basis and share with incredible beings like yourself that are accessing consciousness. And you're being able to repeat it in this 3D reality and show people we're so much more than this flesh and blood that we see before us, and that anything is possible. And that's the magic, in my opinion.
Yes.
With that, thank you, Stephanie. And I am your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master San Qing, and I will see you on the next one, guys.